I think we're Labour government was relocation.
Right, folk, I wonder if we could reconvene. Thank you for insisting that we have a 10-minute break, Amy, and thank you for keeping me safe with standing orders. I appreciate that. Right, I think by my record, we're up to item 11.6, which is health and safety and emergency management. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Chair. So this is the standard information report on health and safety and emergency management. There is an update on the mould present in the building. So this has historically presented a health risk to staff for a while. Since realising the severity of it, access to the men's toilet has been prohibited, and treatment for this is scheduled at the end of October. So that should resolve it in the interim. So that's a health and safety summary. In terms of emergency management, the Wairarapa Emergency Management Needs Review is underway. That will help focus efforts on where we need to focus and improve in terms of our emergency management work with our partners across the 3 councils in the Wairarapa, as well as Remo. We've done quite a lot of work internally to provide a more robust structure and resourcing to respond to emergencies. I'll go through that more probably in the next paper. But it just means instead of having an ad hoc approach to people being interested or such, from a business continuity perspective, we'll focus the training and skill set based on position descriptions, which will then allow us to have a skeleton council staff if there was a large event doing the statutory requirements, and the rest of the people could be freed up to help a response. So it helps our mitigation, helps our communities in that regard. And the Martinborough Community Board won an award for partnering with council as well on that. So that's a summary of the paper. Happy to field any questions.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Folk, we have questions around the paper. Obviously, as you say, there's a link to the prior one. Actually, also explains when I take it the mould is in your main office. That probably explains what I found when I was visiting last week. So I hadn't quite realised. Any particular feature around the actual results around health and safety for the quarter that we should note that you might want to draw out? Or it looks good. I'm impressed with the decreased overspeeding. Being an overspeeder, I have to admit to that. That seems like we're on the right track, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. The driving policy has been a real success. So the instances of speeding have steadily come down and then plateaued to where they are. We're significantly below the kind of average for kind of similar councils and such.
Yep.
Something else to note is probably just the proactive reporting from a health and safety incident point of view. So there's been more, a couple of near misses that people have reported, which is good to make sure we're aware of those incidents and we can do any mitigation in the future on that kind of stuff. So that's probably the kind of main things to pull out.
Right, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments folk would like to raise? No, that's great. Thank you for that. And look, just from your commentary, very much appreciative of the what appears to be the strengthening of and drawn together of the team within the organisation, which is really evident behind both health and safety and the response, which is tremendous. I take comfort from that. So can we move on, Matt, to the emergency response process, which is 11.7?
Absolutely. Thanks again, Chair. So this paper sets out the Council's responsibility to manage emergency events, types of emergency events, and the process to declare an emergency. So the Council follows the SIM structure to respond to an emergency. So this is a modular approach to structure and staff response based on the scale and severity of a response. And an exercise has recently been undertaken, as I mentioned, through the Council to formalise our structure and approach to respond. So within the report, you will see a skeleton structure of our key statutory services we have to continue in any event, such as kind of animal control, payroll, or whatever it might be, and then those roles which are more flexible and able to respond to an event. The structure, basically helps formalise that approach. So if there is an event, an emergency, staff members would know where to go. They wouldn't have to ask permission. They would be freed up in the event of a large emergency event. But yeah, again, happy to take any questions on this paper.
Okay, Colin, do you have questions from the?
Yes, I
private?
did, yeah.
Perhaps it sounds like the time to raise them, please.
Because we contribute as a council to REMO to ensure that there are systems in place across the region effectively for, we seem to have taken a very localised approach, and I'm just wondering, and this may be an open-ended question, if we're doing all this work in-house and we're preparing ourselves for the worst case scenario, where does REMO slot into the picture? Do we need REMO any longer, or should we be focusing on our district as a whole? I don't know. I mean, perhaps you could answer that for me, and just the worth of REMO and that investment that we actually make into REMO.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you want to?
Yeah, I'll take that one. We do have the review underway at the moment. So Simon is working on that for all three councils in terms of what is our readiness, how capable are we of responding, and that relationship with REMO is all part of that review. So that's underway. The other thing is that REMO is looking for, or is supporting in preparedness around community hubs. So they did a lot of the work with Angela and Nigel around the award that was won for Where We Went. They also prepare a lot of the training. Obviously, they're handling the exercise that we've got on the 7th of November. So we've got an exercise day in Masterton to respond to an event, stand up an EOC, those kind of things. So it is a dual relationship. So they have a bigger picture of the whole region, and we have staff that are allocated to the Wairarapa. So there's two of them that support us directly. But we would always need to have staff to be ready to respond to anything from a minor flood to a Category 9 earthquake or something like that. So this is really just saying that we have looked at our staffing, we have looked at our structure, we've looked at the SIM structure, and we have comfort that we have a broad enough range of staff that are trained in all activities to function if we had to function on our own. I've made this a key priority for me, that all staff have basic foundation safety training for emergency response, so that we never get to a position where we haven't got somebody who could slot in somewhere if they needed to.
So where does civil defence, where does civil defence fit in with that?
This is civil defence.
This is REMO.
This is
Well, there's a separate part in here for civil defence.
no, civil defence, emergency response, EOCs, they're all the same thing.
I just haven't seen this level of reporting before, and we seem to be applying a lot of perhaps good logic, I might add, to a report, for instance, that I haven't seen before. And REMO's had a responsibility as we fund REMO and providing us, I guess, around the table, the elected, with an overall picture of preparedness and readiness and response effectively. So internally, I must admit, I'm very pleased to see that we are ready and that we can respond. So
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, Martin?
Yes, well, if we go back to Cyclone Hale, Cyclone Gabriel, there was a reasonably lengthy and quite substantial review that was done on how the Wairarapa councils responded to that. And one of the recommendations that came out of it was that there needed to be, if you like, some more professionalism sitting across the three councils so that we would be, I suppose, better prepared, more ready the next time something like that happens. So to a certain extent, I think part of what you're observing is part of that, making sure that we've always, across the three councils, that is, got some, if you like, sort of presence. Whereas I think previously it would be fair to say everybody who was involved in it, say like Paul for us, went back to their day job and what have you. Anyway, that was sort of identified as an issue, and you might recall we gave a added extra in order to make sure there was a full-time control.
Okay. Yeah.
And one of the things they've done, which I think has been good, is to have an uplift in the amount of coordination and communication right across. And I think you're seeing the benefit of that.
Yeah, that's fair. But thank you. Thanks.
So thumbs up, Matt, for a lot of, just, well, I guess exposing to us the process and indeed Jan, your comment around your personal leadership and drive of South Wairarapa being ready and able to play its part in a broader regional, well, locally, but also in a broader regional initiative. Any other questions or comments folk would like to raise?
Oh, just a comment. There's a lot of work that's gone into this, Bruce, and I'm really impressed with it. It's fantastic. And it was, I say it was an enjoyable read. It was, an enjoyable read because it was, it's the way it was laid out and everything was fantastic. So thank you to all those that pulled us together.
Okay, and it certainly adds to understanding the risks and the mitigations we've put into the risks identified in the prior paper. So again, very helpful. We take it on that basis to understand it as a deep dive. So thank you for that. I wonder if we could then move, please, on to the next paper, which is the information paper 11.8 Capital Projects Summary, please.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks for having me.
And this is?
11.8.
Oh, I didn't write it.
Page 104 or page. Look at it.
Page 104 of the.
Yeah, mine, right, yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, just wanted to formally introduce Melissa, who's reference to the Principal Advisor Project Management position. Some of you may know her and have met her, but just thought first up that. So moving into the report and just acknowledging the work that Melissa's been doing in the past month since she's been in the seat. It's been pretty significant, including help us redesign this report and a bunch of other things. So really great person to have on the team. Moving into the report, there's three components to it. I'll speak to community operations. Then Andy's online to talk about water. Both Tim and Stefan aren't here for the roading. Janice, whether you were speaking to any of that or not, otherwise it was going to be a verbal update. Okay.
I didn't know until earlier that they weren't going to be here.
That's all right.
I had a briefing anyway, but any comments we'll take away.
So across the three components, I can take any questions back if they can't be answered around this table. So just looking into what's page 112, which is the community operations. So that's in the space we operate in there. This is the second iteration. You remember we brought a first report to the table at the last meeting. So this is taking on board feedback we had from this table. And I think the key takeaways for me were still keeping it concise and that this table was more finances and the risk, but in particular having a holistic look. So you'll see the tables in there, in particular the financial piece is at the overall program as opposed to diving into individual projects, which is what we do from the delivery side of things at SWC. So I guess that first and foremost. So quite, again, keen to get your feedback on both the content and the design of the report. I won't read it word for word, but the first slide give you a bit of a visual on financial and the total number of capital projects we have on the go in community ops, a bit around a summary, a visual on the risk, key points of interest and upcoming activities are outlined there, along with a bit of exec summary. And in particular in there, we're talking about both Melissa being on board and some other roles that we have only recently recruited into and have people joining the team, which will be fantastic to add extra horsepower, which is definitely what we need. The turning over to 113 is the financial summary. Again, if another cut on how this could look based on your feedback. This, as we talked about last time, both that asset management and project management is on a journey of maturity, and the more mature we get with that, the more we have in the background with our projects, in particular the project planning. There'll be a lot of lift and shift into this kind of report. So as an example, our forecasts and actuals will follow more what's happening with the projects as opposed to having a bit of a straight line approach to forecasting, which is what we've got here. A good 2/3 of our projects are underway. Some that haven't started, it's purely timing thing throughout the year. There's nothing really of concern that we've got that we're not going to deliver these projects, at least at this stage. And we've got some pretty significant projects drawing to a close in the next 1 to 2 months. Next few weeks, capital spend point of view, are gonna push that a lot further up the line. So we'll be closer to our, you would expect in our forecast in a straight line. And just on the last page, we're thinking about risks. Obviously, it's a big focus of this group and quite a deep dive with the risk register that you have. We wanted to reflect something similar, and again, this will change as we get more mature in the project management space, is having a bit of a snapshot on some of those key risks that we have across the projects. At the moment, these are, like I said last time, they're from a download from people's heads, essentially, as opposed to having this for every project, which is up over time, being able to lift and shift into this report. So I'll stop talking now.
You took a breath.
See if you've got any questions.
Well, firstly, many thanks.
We had a time?
Many thanks to you and Melissa for hearing comments from the prior meeting. It's great. It is certainly giving a much more holistic, I think you used the holistic or top-down view, which I think is where we should as a committee focus. And yet thank you also for the dashboard. I appreciate that. I'm also conscious we've got Wellington Water stuff here and an old face, Andy. Is this where I introduced you? Nice, I hadn't realised you were around. So lovely to see you again and renew acquaintance. Are there aspects, I see water is after your name. Is this an aspect you want to talk to?
Good afternoon, Bruce. Good to catch up with you again. And yes, thank you for that. Thank you for the introduction.
Bruce, sorry, Andy, just before we go to water, is it possible just to have a question of James being slightly different?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go for it. I'm happy to. Yep. Feel that way.
So, sorry, James, and sorry, Bruce, for interfering, for butting in. But I was just wanted to ask James about procurement, and I mean, your forecast spend to get all these projects done. Your next report to us sort of indicates that you're going to spend about 15% of your budget allowance to do that. And you sort of indicated that you didn't see any problems in terms of procurement or doing the work. Do you still sort of, you reinforce that? Yeah. I mean, we should be on track to get some of those projects out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And here's an example of procurement and trying to get more efficient with our procurement, looking at the likes of our car park resealing associated with amenities, bundling that together with the Otarai Reserve work. And so rather than individual procurements for each of those, we're trying to see where there's efficiencies to be gained from that perspective.
Yeah, excellent.
And again, timing in terms of seasonality, we're coming out of winter, so we're getting into those times when we could be painting buildings and doing, car parking and whatnot.
Great, you're over the top, but that's excellent. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Sorry, Bruce. Oh, sorry.
No.
On the listing on 113, is it?
Mm-hmm.
New staff member underway, work will commence once the person's inducted. What staff member recruitment says?
Oh, really?
It's basically not a volunteer role.
So it's not a new role. It's a role we had someone leave. Had a couple of staff members that are backfilling that role. So we've recruited someone. They start at the end of this month. So what that's getting at is that we'll have someone in that role that can then take the load off the other two staff members that can then focus back on their core roles as well. So
welcome to Melissa.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Bruce.
So while we have followed up on James's comments around this aspect, are there any other questions for James at this point? Right, I wonder then, Andy, we'll come back to you now. So again, yes, welcome, and I presume the water side is yours to give us any heads up that you need to.
Yes, thank you, Bruce. Thank you, councillors. Look, I'm conscious that the dashboards that have been provided are dated August 24, which is some best part of a month and a half away, and we will endeavour to provide some in future moving forward the more recent reports that are made available, and clearly that's just a timing issue in terms of writing the report and the delivery of the report from Wellington Water. A lot of work going on in the capital field, and Wellington Water are being encouraged to build momentum around the delivery of their capital programme. I think I can give you a bit of an update from some of these projects. In particular, the consultation on the Greytown water treatment plant has been completed. A good response from a good response to the consultation, which is being evaluated and will come back to councils through deliberations and a decision report. The Maroa water consent application renewal was put in on Friday on time, and so that will then be considered in terms of Greater Wellington Regional Council, and we'll wait for that to pass through its process. In terms of unexpected events, then most elected members will be aware of the leak at the Greytown wastewater treatment plant. That's taken a little while to move forward, but I'm pleased to tell you that the leak was finally plugged last night. So there's a good piece of news for a Thursday afternoon, and now the outstanding work will be completed over the next couple of weeks. Reactive renewals, I'm keeping an eye on the expenditure on that. They're creeping up a little, so we're keeping an eye on what's being done and where that's heading. But generally, everything is progressing this early in the year. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate that. And look, I take on board your point about August. It is what it is. And this is starting to get, as I said, consistent with James's and Ross's work, consistent and better information coming to the committee. So I'm happy to take it on that basis. Do you have any questions for Andy around the Three Waters?
Sorry, Bruce, if I may. Andy, just in terms of the Taranaki pipeline, where am I? Taranaki pipeline. It says here it's on the green. In the green, it's on track, and we approved some funding for this some time ago because it was deemed to be a big priority job that needed to be done ASAP, and there was a risk, I guess, that the pipe would fail and that Featherston will dry up. A lot of alcohol, but of water. But I haven't seen a lot of action, and I'm wondering what you say. It's green here, but there is clearly a delay, whether it's in the consenting, whether it's in the construction. But can you give us a bit of an update on that?
So the pipeline work, the design is almost complete. The access arrangements with the landowners to get access to the site is being finally negotiated, and we expect a start on site next first quarter of next year.
Yeah. So the degree of urgency seems to have diminished.
No.
We're holding Wellington Water's feet to the fire on that, and understand the urgency in terms of the pipeline and pushing them as hard as we can.
So the first quarter of next year, you're saying that the work will commence. Is that correct?
That's my understanding at this point in time from the information we've got from Wellington Water. Correct.
Thanks.
You need to bear in mind we also need to wait for low water flow to do the work that we're doing. So,
well, I was sort of led to believe that we were going under the.
We are, but we still need to have the low water over the site.
I thought we're digging a hole each side and poking a hole.
You can't exactly do that if it's sort of sinking in mud and a lot of water.
Sorry,
Councillor.
Yeah.
Councillor, you've been told. You're not a bloody digger, right?
Obviously not.
Very good. Thanks, Andrew. Only question I have.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'm tempted to ask when it would begin if it wasn't urgent.
It's a clear motivation. This one.
Don't tempt fate.
It is a good question, I know.
Andy, I sort of have a systems question. Probably Wellington Water's being beaten up a fair bit, and of course, my background with Wellington Water comes out of the Wellington context, which isn't necessary. I don't know who should be beaten up over that. The quality of the reporting itself, the system of reporting, this information that's coming through, you're satisfied with its quality and its accuracy?
That's a good question. At this point in time, I am. I think there can be further refinements and further updates. I think the question is that for efficiency reasons, Wellington Water are looking to provide standardised reporting across their shareholder councils. Clearly, that is an efficiency issue for them. But of course, but we do need to reflect the more regional and the less urban nature of South Wairarapa going forward. So it is an ongoing conversation we're having with Wellington Water.
Look, and there's nothing necessarily overly devious in my question, or I'm not certainly wanting to bag either anybody's efforts here, but I'm very conscious, and this is perhaps going beyond the direct brief of reporting on capital development, but we want to be a smart procurer. We need to have the right information coming in, and I would ask you to reflect on that as we go forward, if that's the case. I certainly don't have trouble that if it's standardised information, it makes them more efficient, cost less overall. That actually should be applauded. That's actually about what we're trying to do here, because after all, I think the information. I hear your point about where we're more rural, local, as in contrast to urban, but equally, relatively standard information is probably logical. So it would be good to test: are we getting the right information? But actually, is it reliable? We're getting the sense of its reliability and usefulness would make a lot of sense. Because let's face it, even if we go, well, actually, I should be careful what I say. I won't go there. But that's helpful. So thank you for that, Andy. It's really good. Any other questions for Andy or indeed James over the capital delivery? Yes, Colin?
Can I just ask another one? Because I was supposed to be at Featherston this afternoon to engage with our community over their wastewater consent for Featherston. Andrew, if you had an opportunity to look through the fundamentals of that document, for instance, or the consent, because there is a feeling that there are some fishhooks in there, and I haven't discovered what they are, but we've had some concerns raised by a member of our community about the methodology behind it. Have you had an opportunity to have a look through, and would you make any comments? Probably not.
I think it's challenging to make a comment on on an unclear question. I think if you can articulate or provide a little bit more detail, I can certainly review any concerns that you have. But I don't think I could provide any sort of general comments at this point.
That's fine. I put you on the spot there a little bit, and I will refine it and perhaps shoot you an email just to get some clarity around it. Yeah, it was just about methodology and the process. Yeah. This meeting's a priority for me today, so.
Appreciate that, and for noting that. Thank you for being with us, Con. That's great. Okay, so look, I think in that case we could thank you, Andy, James, Melissa, for your work. Again, Melissa, obviously you were mentioned dispatches here, getting some of the information upgraded in the way it's come through. So I'm deeply appreciative of that as well too. That's great to have that here. Thank you for the contribution that you've all made. Thank you. We'll move on to item 11.9, which are action items. Amy, as we're in your hands, possibly.
Thanks, Chair.
That's what you listen.
There are 2 open actions.
Sorry, Amy. Didn't hear that.
There are 2 open actions.
That's right.
But I believe they both remain open.
Through you, Bruce, I would ask whether 11.2 remains open or whether you're content to close it with.
Yes,
safe-
I'm comfortable to close it. I mean, it was sort of a generalised rather than specific invitation to Sarah to come back at some appropriate point down the track, but it's more if actually the program halts. So it's not really an action item. It's really an invitation. She needs our support to come back.
Thank you.
I'd second that.
So definitely that, to me, that's off the table. We don't have to keep that one on the table. And the insurance, look, I just want to raise a question about it, but I'd like to do that in PX, Jan, if that's okay.
Okay.
We'll keep that there at the moment, if only because there's a broader strategic discussion to have there. Thank you.
Yep.
Righty, if we could move then to item 12. I'm just checking my agenda here. Sorry, you can see that I didn't quite have it under control there. It's slightly. I was going off, Amy, the bookmark version, and it's different to the great run sheet you gave me. So my apologies for the trouble beforehand. So look, there is a paper 12, which is the chairperson report, and in effect, it's probably appropriate I talk to this. My commitment clearly is to this role, but inevitably there are the odd clash, and that has affected my ability once or twice to literally be there. It's conventional in most committees for there to be a deputy chair. So Jen and I have been discussing if the committee is open to that, we actually appoint a deputy chair that I could work with. And in those rare situations where I am unable to attend, could even deputise for me. It's also valuable that I have a deputy chair on the basis that actually I think it's important that even though we are, we meet modestly, in other words, every quarter, there's a chance for a level of reporting back to council when and as appropriate. So I've got firstly the principal perspective that I believe it's important that we do have a deputy chair, and I would like to seek your endorsement that we do that, and then obviously then let's nominate to actually have a deputy chair. So that's my sort of opening round. I guess my first question is, are you folk happy that we have a deputy chair on the committee?
Yep, totally agree.
Do we, Councillor Woodcock, we're okay with our numbers, yeah?
Because he's not in the room.
There's a quorum. Nominate Councillor Woodcock.
I think I've still got a quorum. So look, Jan, if I could lean your way, you say we've got to have a voting system, which is fair enough, and I don't do that. It seems to me that system B is appropriate once we seek nominations, if that's okay. If it is, look, could I suggest, and I'd like to nominate that Councillor Bosley be my deputy, and I'd like to nominate that. Would I have a seconder for that?
I'll second that. We all
Thank
will.
you, Colin.
Are
Are there any other nominations?
And Woody would do.
And Woody would do. Okay, so we know it's unanimous. Look, okay.
I couldn't even distinguish whose hand went.
Martin,
Thanks.
You charge for the hand up.
I should have asked, are you open to it, but are you?
She said yes.
Do a chance to say, thank you very much, I accept the position.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you for that. I don't know whether it's a poison chalice or a promotion. I don't know which, Martin, you'll work it out over time.
Yeah.
So look, could I then just therefore, this is one we do have to have a resolution on, obviously. So if we could, which obviously I'll move, that the Assurance Committee appoint Martin to the role of Deputy Chairperson, and note the terms of reference will be updated and submitted to the Strategy Working Party for confirmation at its next meeting. I'll move that. Perhaps again, Colin, given I've asked you second the nomination, could I ask you to second that motion, please?
Yeah, that's fine. We'll make it do
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
that.
Those against? It's carried. Thank you for that. That's wonderful and just super helpful. Rightio, I'm going to go back to my run sheet here. I think that gets us to the end of the open section. It means then that we need to move into PX, primarily to deal with the minutes of our last meeting, although I've said I'd like to just ask one final question, which I think should be in PX. I'll move from the chair that we go into PX for the reasons stated. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Martin. Any questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? It's carried. Righty, we'll have the minutes of, oh, you need to wait, sorry, need to wait